I am joined by Kumba CEO Mpumi Zikalala. Mpumi, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. We've seen, Mpumi, that the lack of rail capacity is hurting other miners and other commodity producers in South Africa, including Thungela Resources and Exxaro Resources. When it comes to Kumba Iron Ore, you have not been able to escape the logistics challenges at Transnet, and in fact it seems you have stored iron ore because you can't you are unable to export it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So if you look at our results, we demonstrated higher levels of production, and as indicated, I think our teams did well, particularly at Kolomela, where we saw an improvement relative to what we had in the first half of last year. But the challenge has been around logistics. I have to say that if you look at it from a contractual performance perspective, logistics delivered just over 80% of what we expect to get if we were operating at full contract. The net impact of that was a revenue reduction of just over 6 billion rand, so it is impacting us. But even with that, we've been consistent around saying that there is a greater need for us to continue collaborating with both Transnet and clearly with government. And what's pleasing to note is the recent establishment of the National Logistics Crisis Committee, which brings together other elements of government. So logistics sits as part of the 3 key priorities that are being looked at by the President, together with the business sector and also labor as well. And clearly the other ones are the energy challenges that are being looked at by NECOM, and also the crime and corruption space that's being looked at by JICC. So we are pleased with the establishment of the NLCC and are active participants, because clearly a better performing rail system will not only benefit our companies, but it will benefit the country as a whole. And that covers both the economy, because we do need to see our economy growing, but it also covers the aspect that says that when mines perform, those benefits go back to broader society as well.
Mpumi, we speak to a number of CEOs in the resources sector, and they seem to be in support of privatizing some railway lines, particularly when it comes to such challenges. Do you think the privatization route is going to resolve the challenges that are there for firms just like yourselves?
So, Xolani, I have to say that the challenges that we are faced with cannot be resolved by one party alone, be it Transnet or government or indeed the business sector on its own. What is required is greater collaboration and, as you've said, greater public and private sector participation. We do believe that the essence of third-party operations, and this is something that's enabled by the recent policy changes, by the way, would make a difference. We also believe that concessioning, as we call it, certain aspects of the various sectors of Transnet would ultimately assist. What's pleasing is the fact that when one looks at the National Logistics Crisis Committee, it does, from a policy front, call for private sector participation. The question is, I guess, the aspect of what that should look like. But that's certainly something that we support, because we do believe that we need to be part of the solution as business.
Let's talk about something else that is a challenge for the sector, and that is cable theft. We've seen some firms using drones, using helicopters to counter that theft of cables. Are you invested in that, and how much is it helping to actually deter the cable theft that affects the railway lines and the exportation?
Xolani, unfortunately, yes. After a long period of not being affected by this on the iron ore export channel, we started to see the emerging trend in June, and very much similar to all the other commodity lines, we jumped in together with the other users of the line, and we are working with Transnet on the improved security that's been put in place. And it's not just people on the ground, it's drones and also indeed helicopters to combat what we see as an emerging risk for our line. So we've certainly learned from what they've done, because clearly they are more experienced than us in this space, and we are doing something similar. And that's actually quite helpful.
Mpumi, let's talk about something else that concerns Kumba. I'm not sure if the wage negotiations are at an advanced stage, whether you are going to go back to the table with the unions, because particularly recent reports have pointed to the fact that there is a deterioration in the negotiations themselves.
Xolani, I can say that we've concluded our wage negotiations. We signed a 3-year agreement. There was a challenge because we initially clearly agreed with 2 out of the 3 of our unions, but we've had subsequent engagement with the other union, and I can say that we've concluded the space.
Mpumi, before I let you go, I want to find out your views on the outlook for the particular sector, seeing that we are in a high inflationary environment with high interest rates. Sticky inflation is a problem for many sectors. How do you see the outlook for the remainder of the year?
Yeah, Xolani, I think firstly, let me just talk about cost inflations. There's a lot of work that we do internally on an ongoing basis, and this is something that we've been doing. We started off with our Tswelelopele strategy, and with our refresh strategy, we continue on this front. We continuously set ourselves targets as we look at driving cost efficiencies, and what I'm pleased with is that we started this year with a target of seeing a cost reduction of 1 billion rand. Our teams have been able to deliver 0.9 billion of that as we currently sit, and that work will continue taking place. The other thing that we focus on is more generic cost efficiencies, just looking at consumption and other elements, and I'm seeing good improvements across all fronts. I guess the last one for us is essentially looking at the iron ore outlook from a market perspective. Very good to see that current prices that are sitting at circa $115 per ton are actually fundamentally supported by what we are seeing. And that includes, I guess, the 1.2% year-on-year improvement in terms of what we've seen from a Chinese steel production perspective. And that's driven by both domestic consumption from their side and also the export aspect from their side. Clearly, all of us are looking to see at what's going to happen at the economic stimulus that China is considering, and that will certainly be helpful for our industry as much as I'm sure for other industries as well.
Absolutely, all eyes on that stimulus package in Asia. Mpumi Zikalala is the CEO at Kumba Iron Ore. Thank you very much this afternoon for your time. She heads Kumba, which has been forced to stockpile iron ore as the logistics challenges at Transnet is preventing a lot of exports from taking place.